Yeah, so the amount of power you can get just from lowering your gaze is crazy. And there's a lot of scientific benefits of it as well. So here's what I want you to pay attention to. Is as a man, you have a desire, which is to procreate, okay? But you have a biological need to procreate. But also you have a desire to go ahead and, you know, talk to chicks and have fun with some chicks, do things with chicks, right? This is something, as a man, you have this desire. You get horny. You want to do these kind of things, right? That's why things like these porn industry and all these kind of things are so huge, because it is the detriment to mankind. It is what the thing that limits man. You know, powerful kings, what happened to them back in the days? They fell. Kingdoms fell. Powerful kings fell to the hands, to the palms of a woman. And I'll be the first to tell you, and I think that's some coward things, right? I think it's cowardly, right? You could be a powerful king, but if you're gonna fall to a woman, I think it's embarrassing. Because women are like children, okay? If a child can control you, that says a lot about you. But here's why it can be justifiable, okay? The only reason why is because a man, when he gets into that state where he's so horny, he has so much sexual energy inside of him, if he does not learn how to channel it properly, and if he doesn't have a healthy relationship between himself and women, what happens is he goes ahead and he chases that. He's like a dog chasing the validation of women. He's like a dog chasing the dopamine of a woman even looking at him, of a woman even talking to him, acknowledging him, of a woman even just walking right by him, and he goes inside of this whole fantasy of, oh, she looked at me, she loved me, and creates this fictional story. Is it fictional? Yeah, fictional story in his head. Oh yeah, she loves me, you know, I'm the best. I'm not even, he doesn't even think he's the best. He's like, oh my God, why would she look at me? You know, these are the guys that will pay, and that do pay women for their farts. It's just so stupid. Oh my God, it's ridiculous, right? Think of how low you will think of yourself to be able to actually pay a woman for their farts. And it's getting hot in here. Not because we're talking about sex and women, but because I'm standing right under the sun. So let's put this AC on. So this is what we need to do, right? When you start lowering your gaze, it actually changes your life, in the sense that it starts to train yourself and train your mind, train your brain to detach from the validation, to detach from the need, to detach from your sexual energy, from your horniness, to take over you. And that's what happens, right? Sometimes you start doing certain things, you get horny, you start doing things that you like, you know. That's why, like, a lot of guys, they'll go and they'll do things they'll regret. Like, even, you know, like non-Muslims, what happened, right? And even Muslims as well, right? You'll get horny and you'll fornicate, which is not allowed in Islam, right? Or also you'll get horny and you'll fornicate with an ugly girl, right? With a fat girl, with a girl that you would never fornicate with. But why would you do that? Because that energy is so strong, that energy is so overwhelming that it does take over a man, and it takes over his reason and logic, and which is what is the superpower of a man. His superpower is logic. His superpower is reason. A man's superpower is his ability to do things regardless of how he feels, because of logic, because of understanding what he needs to do. And so what happens is, by lowering your gaze, you start to regain that control. Because here's what happens. Here's the path that we end up going towards. When you start, let's say you go outside on a day like this, it's hot, right? There's gonna be women all over the place, especially in the Western world. Women, even in like covered world, right? When you're in that horny state, when you're in that sexual state, when you're in that state where you can easily be impacted, what happens is, even if a woman is covered, you start to you are still fantasizing, you are still thinking, and it all comes from the gaze and the wisdom, you know. Obviously, right? The creator created the creation. So the creator knows what is good for the creation, right? For example, if I created a brand new phone, right? Or the creators of the iPhone, for example, they're the manufacturers, right? They know, okay, this is the charger, this is the watts that you should use or whatever. This is how you should use it for optimal performance. Okay, it's the manufacturer recommendations, right? Well, the creator, which is God, Allah, he is the creator. We are the creation, mankind, and everything else, right? So there is protocol. There is a manufacturer's, like, what's that called? Guideline, right? There are those things where, okay, this is what you need to do to be at your best. And one of those things is to lower your gaze. And it's not only to men, it's also to women as well. Women are, you know, don't get this wrong. Women are also very, very sexual. Okay, those of you men who don't understand this, women are very sexual as well. Everybody's sexual, right? This is a biological need to procreate, and it manifests itself in the desire to engage in the action, right? That's the desire, and then you just want to do it, especially on hot days or whatever, right? But the thing is, it starts from the gaze. That's why Allah commands us to lower our gaze, right? In man and woman, we should be lowering our gaze. What happens is, you go around, you go outside, you see a beautiful woman, and that image, that picture, that frame, that input goes into your eyes, goes into your gaze, because you didn't lower your gaze and you stared. All right, what happens is, it goes into your gaze. It starts to go inside of your brain, and your brain starts to think differently. It changes your brain. It literally changes your brain. When you see something, it affects your brain. For example, if I showed you, if you're hungry, and if I just, even if you smelled delicious food, you start salivating. If you saw food, you start salivating, right? This is the effect a visuals can have to your mind and your body, you know, and the way your body reacts. And so why would you think one of the biggest things a man becomes weak to, which is woman, and the adornment of woman and the beauty of woman, why would you think that if he sees a beautiful woman, it would not affect his brain? It would not affect his body. It would not affect how his body reacts. Clearly, if you see a beautiful woman, and if you keep seeing her, or if you see something really beautiful and you really like, what happens? You have a natural body reaction in the form of an erection, right? In the form of thoughts in your head. This is what happens. And so here's why it's so powerful. When you start lowering your gaze, you start to regain that power. Now you're not affected mentally by this image of this woman, or of women, or any kind of acts that you want to do. And because you're not engaging in that thought, because you're not engaging in that fantasy, because you're not engaging in this kind of, game inside of your head, what happens is you actually end up becoming more powerful, because now you have to exercise willpower initially to lower your gaze. You see the woman, and you're used to just looking at it, staring, whatever, and you're like, oh yeah, whatever. But now you just look at it because you realize there's no point in it, or whatever reasoning. There's many reasons we can get into it, right? There's so many reasons, right? And after a while, you realize that there's no point of looking at these women, and then you realize that women are just women. I know there's a lot of problems in men, in boys, in children, in kids, in guys, is that you start to pedestalize women like there's somebody completely like crazy. That's why these guys are paying for women's farts. It's so crazy. It's ridiculous. Like if I saw these guys, I would just violate so crazy, because it's so degrading to manhood. It's so degrading to the masculine gender. The fact that you're going to go ahead and pedestalize a woman so much that you're going to go ahead and like buy their farts. Even like I don't know, people are into weird things, but like if you're going to go ahead and even sucking on women's feet, like I think that's ridiculous. Like I think you're just like, that's a whole different conversation, being a simp and all that kind of stuff. But lowering your gaze, what happens is it does really enhance your power, because you need to exercise some form of willpower, which is a strong willpower, which is your innate desire is to look at that woman. You want to look at that woman. You want to see that woman. She looks good. She has a nice figure. She has a shape that you like, right? She has that, backside that you really want to look at. But the thing is, when you exercise the willpower of now looking at it, it now strengthens you, because you're doing something that you know you shouldn't be doing, or you are not doing something that you want to do, and now you are resisting, you're restraining. Think about it when you're fasting, right? Don't you feel powerful when you're fasting? Don't you feel better when you're fasting, especially if you're doing it the right way? Don't you feel more spiritual? Don't you feel stronger? Don't you feel like you're kind of floating, right? I mean, those of you who fast properly, you realize, okay, you know what, that's why people are like, I don't want Ramadan to finish, when you do it correctly, because you feel powerful, you feel energetic, you feel so, you know, aligned, you feel so focused, you feel relentless, you feel unstoppable, pretty much, you feel untouchable. The reason why is because you've been restraining for so long, restraining the desire of your body, of your mind, of your brain, that is like, it wants to do something, and you are like, nah, I'm not doing it. You're taking back control. That's really what it is. And when you take back control, now you start to cultivate that power. What do you think is going to happen? That energy is so powerful that it brings down kingdom when a man falls into the prey of woman. Okay, when a falls prey to a woman's, you know, lust, or falls prey to a woman's beauty, and it brings him down. Or man, he falls into this cycle of chasing women. Or a man, he falls into this cycle of dopamine. It's really what it is like chasing dopamine. I mean, if we really dumb it down, if we really bring it down, we really look at it, it's like, okay, I'm looking at this woman, it's firing a dopamine in my brain, I'm fantasizing all these kinds of things, more dopamine in my brain. That's really what porn is, right? It's more dopamine, and also you're tricking yourself thinking you're procreating. So now your body thinks and your brain thinks that you're actually surviving, so you're doing the right thing, which is to survive, and your body's trained to survive. And that's why you become addicted, because you're like, oh, you know what, this is me spreading my seed, right? That's really what it is. But now, instead, you're just fooling yourself by looking at these women, and now you are using that, it's taking up your brain. And you know this, right? When you see a woman, you can't resist. Think of how weak you become when you see a woman, you can't resist looking at her. Think of how we can just focus one day, just go outside, and you see old men, right? Just go outside. You just sit down, just sit straight, and you see a woman walking. And then when you see the woman walking, you obviously, like, you can tell instantly, okay, this is a good looking woman, right? But don't look at her, don't stare at her, just stare, right? Look at the men over there, and you see how pathetic they look, right? Like, you see older men, they'll walk and they'll just look back, and they'll literally stop their day. Think of how much of a lacking of purpose that they have in their life. They have no purpose. They'll stop their day, they'll turn around, turn their whole body from walking towards the direction they're going, and turn their whole body just to look at a piece of backside. And it's like, oh yeah, that's good, and then go back. It's stupid. That's not something a high value man does, okay? That's not something a man on his purpose does. That's not something a man that really is on his grind does. Like, he's like, yeah, I got stuff to do. Like, I don't even see you, right? When you're on your grind, you don't even see people. You don't see people, right? Like, the people that, like, us, like, people don't even get on my radar, because most people are not on their own radar. Most people don't have a radar. Most people are not in their purpose. Most people are not in their grind. Like, when you're a warrior, and you're out there fighting demons and just, you know, doing what you got to do, and you're out in the streets, pedestrians, as a warrior, you know you're a target, because just like you are out there, you're fighting, whatever, you're battling. But also, as you're fighting, you pedestrians, like, you know they're there, but they don't pique your radar. They don't raise your senses. You know they're there, but you're not going to stop to, you know, be alarmed by a pedestrian, right? But then when there's a demon coming in, or when there's like an opposite, when there's like an enemy, well, guess what? You notice that, okay? So here's the thing: when you're not on your purpose, when you're not on your grind, you're easily dissuaded. You're easily swayed. You're easily taken away from your power, which is your masculine power. which has a lot to do with your sexual energy. And your sexual energy gets diminished, and it starts from the gaze. As you start looking at this woman, you start fantasizing. Now you're so horny. Now you need to release that, because your body, when it gets into that state, it no longer functions under reason and logic. It functions, okay, I need to do something with this energy. And if you don't know how to sexually transmutate that energy for something productive, like business, like working out, building the body of yourself, like memorizing the Quran, like doing something that's really building you, cultivating the 10.0 version of yourself, what happens is you go into this spiral down hole, and then eventually it will lead into negative acts. Things like looking at Instagram, looking at all these girls, which is, I think, is so stupid, right? Just looking at these girls, and it's so stupid. Think about how much you're pedestalizing these women. Bro, it's just, whatever. I mean, I can't, you know what I'm saying? You know what it is. Like, I was going to say, it's just, bro, it's just a body, bro. It's just a body. It's just, you know, it's just the shape of a woman. I can say that, but it's also like, you know, it attracts me as well, right? But it's like understanding that, like, it's just a woman, bro. It's just a woman. It's not that crazy, okay? It's not that crazy. And you're getting no benefit by looking at it. And lowering your gaze is not just on the streets. It's also on your phone. It's also on that Instagram. Start unfollowing all these women that are just showing, like, if I go on your Instagram and if I see your feed filled with women, I know what kind of man you are. I know that you're a coward from yourself. I know I can't trust you. I can't, because you are going to fall into the power of, or into lust of a woman. And because someone's Instagram says a lot about where they're going and what they're trying to do, okay? And if your Instagram is filled with women showing, you know, being like lustful and showing like these provocative pictures, and that's your Instagram is filled with that, I know where your mind is at. Your mind is that, and that's the lowest level of man, of where you're just like, I'm just chasing women. That's the lowest level. You should not be chasing women. You should be attracting women by being on your purpose. That's what happens. Okay, so lowering your gaze helps that as well. So think of how all that power that comes in when you're not giving that power away, because you look at that woman, and even on your phone, it goes into your head. Then you start doing even worse and even worse. Now you want to see more women, and with less clothes off. Then you go into porn. Then you go into that thing, and now you trick your brain thinking you're surviving. And now guess what? You're sedated. You're powerless. You feel lazy. You feel lethargic. You feel shame. You feel guilt, and it's not good, man. It's not good. You don't feel powerful, and because you have literally depleted your dopamine, and your brain thinks you have survived, now you don't feel the need or any desire or any motivation to go ahead and better yourself. Go ahead and work out. Go ahead and start that business. Go ahead and take that risk. You don't feel that desire. You don't feel that power, because you feel powerless, because you gave your power away, and it all started from lowering that gaze. Listen, guys, as a man, women are our weakness. So we need to learn how we can use that to our advantage. Allah says, lower your gaze, commands us to lower our gaze. What happens is when you lower your gaze, you regain that power. Now you have this sexual energy that you will have naturally that's inside of a man. Use that sexual energy for productive acts, to become a better man, to become a great man. Do it on the pursuit of becoming stronger. Do it on the pursuit of, you know, being more brolic, being more aesthetic, being more vascular, whatever it is, whatever your goal is, being more fit, being literally looking like a warrior, right? Put it on that grind, put it on that plate, put it on that desire, put it on that pursuit. And then also use that energy for business, right? Give yourself, if you're not married, give yourself the task. You know what? If you're watching porn and doing these kinds of, give yourself the task. You know what? every time I feel this kind of urge to do this kind of things, and you know you go into that route, drop down, do some push-ups. It's very easy, bro. It's very easy to channel that energy. That energy is there, sexual transmutation. All you got to do is channel that energy, right? Once you know the thought, you know what it leads to. You just got to be aware a little bit, right? And there's different ways where you can get aware, but you know where it leads to. Just drop down, do some push-ups, or just go outside, go for a walk. And you just got to distract yourself for just enough time that it doesn't take over you. That's literally what it is. It's about learning how to use your mind to the best of your ability and how to use it for your benefit, right? I have a saying that says, you know, don't be a slave to your mind, but be a master to your slave. That slave is going to be your mind. Be a master to your mind. Be a master to your slave. So let me say it again. Don't be a slave to your mind. Just because you had a thought, a sexual thought, doesn't mean you have to go on Instagram and scroll and look at these women, or, you know, go to these websites and see these kind of things. Just because you had that thought, or just because there's a beautiful woman and you want to see it, doesn't mean you have to look at it. Or just because you feel like, you know, you have all this energy inside you and you have to release it, doesn't mean you have to release it. It means you need to channel it. Somehow you need to channel it. And if you use that energy to channel it into something productive, you actually get so much more. There's a different aura around you. And I remember I fell into, the only reason I can speak to you like this, because I had these problems. And so, you know, and it was on and off, on and off. And what happened was I literally made a commitment to myself. I'm never going to do these kind of things. Right? This was long ago. I stopped looking at Instagram. I stopped. This was way long ago. It feels amateurish to me. Right. But I was like, I realized pretty quickly, I was like, yo, what am I doing looking at these women? You know what I'm saying? I'm more about success and, you know, being an emperor. You know, that's what I'm about. Being a czar. That's what I'm about. So my Instagram is filled with that kind of stuff, business and stuff. But before, in the beginning, when you're growing up, you like, that's the biggest thing. You're like, oh my God, woman, and you want to do that. That's really what drives the masculine you know, masculine child, you know, and when he's young. And so that's what was driving me. But then I quickly realized it's not going to help me. I stopped that. You know, I did go down that route on, you know, watching these websites and all this kind of stuff, but I stopped that. And then I went through a whole journey of, like, you know, ups and downs, withdrawals and things like that. But what I did was I replaced that to something productive. And instead of using that energy to do what I normally did, which is just release energy and release my, you know, this seed all the time, all over the place, instead I use that and I put it towards the gym. I put it towards the gym, and it has been the best thing I've done. Because when I did that, I started a business. I very quickly started earning 10K a month, very quickly working 20 minutes a day. Okay, let me put that in there, right? That was with Airbnb. And my body got, you know, I regained my body. It got fit again. I felt better about myself. Things just got better. I started taking more action in business, and I realized it's really becoming in control over yourself. That's where I started coming up with these ideas, like, hey, be a master to your slave. Don't be a slave to, don't be a slave to your mind. Be a master to your slave. So much love, guys. Lower your gaze. Be powerful. Take the power back in your hands, and you will take over the world.